The first song I ever wrote, I know it was some sort of improvised thing on a piano at my grandmother's house, and at the time I thought it was like this really great symphonic sort of thing. I'm sure it wasn't, but it was the first time something felt like music. The first real song I think I wrote was called Cindy and Amy, about two girls that I met outside of New York, Philly somewhere, I forget. And I remember the form of the song was like A through the alphabet, maybe twice, and I thought that was a pop tune. So yeah, that was the first one. Things have changed since then. Because I come to music first as a drummer, I've been influenced by a lot of musicians as opposed to singers, but a lot of singers too along the way because I've played for a lot of singers. And I'm influenced by the guys I'm playing with, Jim Riddle, Dean Johnson, Tim Horner. They inspire me all the time. And I don't, Randy Newman, I love him. Sinatra, Ray Charles, Ella, Betty Carter. There's just so many. I don't know that there's any one person that I just like a lot of stuff, Rolling Stones to Stravinsky, everything in between. Well, the band is, this is my quartet now for the past couple of years, and it's Jim Riddle on piano, Dean Johnson on bass, and Tim Horner on drums. And we have a CD out called Simple Life that came out in March, and it's just coming out now in Europe in November. And Jim and I will be going over to Paris for a week, doing a couple gigs there, Brussels, some stuff in London. Unfortunately, couldn't take the guys, the whole quartet, but that's my main quartet, and we play a lot together. And on the CD is also Joe Locke, who's a tremendous vibraphonist, and he's my special guest for 4 tunes on the album. He brings so much to it. So, the name of the song for the real book that I put in is Book Faded Brown. It's not a jazz tune at all. It's song that I wrote, I guess, back in the 80s, maybe latter part of the 80s, and I guess at a time where I felt the moral fabric was diminishing. Maybe a lot in the way it does now still too, I don't know. But it's about a family that still embrace their values of, it's not a song about religion, it's not like beating anybody over the head, but they're people that they're not ashamed to say that they love each other, they're not shy about holding hands or sticking to these really wonderful values, I think, And I was lucky to have it recorded by Carl Perkins and also by Rick Danko and then also by the band. So I'm really fortunate to have that song out there. I love the tune. It's, I don't know, it's more country-ish, I guess, in a way, but it's a nice song and a good message, and I just love the tune, so that's why I put it in. It's a very simple tune, but this wasn't the intention, but I always say that to do simple and deep is one of the hardest things to do. And I think this is one of those tunes. It has some jazz influence. I really love mixing these genres a little bit, so there's some upper partials in some of the harmony, so it's not like a strict country kind of tune. But if you took that stuff away, it would still stand on its own. It's very simple harmonically, and I would probably go with that first. And for me, it's always about the story as a vocalist. And so I would want it's the words that are most important. As long as you let that come out, then that's how I would approach it first. Then you could start to embrace it with your own harmonies or whatever that you want to do. And honestly, if anybody does my song, they're welcome to do it any way that they want, because when I do rearrangements or reimaginings, whatever, of other people's songs, I want to have complete artistic license. And I want to offer the same thing to anybody else. Do whatever you want, however the tune moves you, Philadelphia is one of the greatest well springs of creativity and in the arts and science and architecture, everything. It's just a great city with so many great musicians that have come from here. But I think great musicians and great art comes almost every place. I live in South Jersey, but I've been influenced by people down there, teachers that teach there. Atlantic City's been a big part of my life, and before casinos and all that stuff. And Philadelphia, it becomes a very small world the longer that you stay, the longer that you endure, the longer that you stay the course. It becomes a smaller and smaller world. But there are so many great players, and I think musicians that want to learn and want to keep, expanding themselves, they reach out wherever it is. So I spend a lot of time in New York right now. That's kind of where, my destiny is kind of taken me for right now. But I love Philadelphia. There's so much great stuff. But I can go to Atlantic City and handpick like 6, 10, 12, 15 musicians that are great, or South Jersey, or they're every place. But there's a special thing for Philly. It's just got a certain thing,